Unsolved.
JonBenet Ramsey case, face value of the ransom note. In this episode, we're going to focus on the ransom note in a little different way, because I didn't consider some sicko coming to the Ramsey household to assault and murder JonBenet, that being his sole intent. And so I have these photographs of these three girls here. The first, going left to right, is Elizabeth Smart, and she was abducted from her Utah home by a homeless gentleman that did a little work for her father, and then he returned at night and snuck in through a window and abducted her, and fortunately she survived the ordeal. Okay, and the next girl in the center, Polly Klaas, was abducted by some brazen intruder. He came right up to the front door, opened the door, went upstairs, found her room. She was with two of her friends, and he abducted her and unfortunately murdered her. And then the last girl, Heather Dawn Church, was abducted from her Colorado home by a neighbor, and he came at night while her mom went off to do an errand and went through a window and abducted her and unfortunately killed her. Next, I wanted to explain that if an intruder killed JonBenet, this is my opinion of who that intruder would be. So I have this range, and this is not an absolute range, it's just an estimate. But for JonBenet, it was a person that either saw her in one of the beauty pageants and knew JonBenet well from being outside, not, he never met her. 2, just seeing her one time in the neighborhood. And then John Ramsey, the range would be that the intruder knew him from his business, and so he knew John pretty well also from the outside. 2, just a neighbor or a homeless person in the neighborhood. Next, I wanted to try to explain the ransom note. The purpose of the ransom note would be that the intruder was a neighbor or lived very close to the Ramsey household, and he wanted to throw the police off, so they would be looking for some outsider and somebody not in the area. Possibly also if the intruder was leaving the neighborhood, moving away, also to give more time. And then my third kind of explanation would be that he was there to assault and murder JonBenet, but to kind of justify this in his head, he made it to be a kidnapping and requesting a ransom that he wasn't going to do because he was there. He's a sicko. He was there to assault and murder her. The purpose of this video is to try to identify the author of this ransom note, looking at the ransom note at face value and kind of in a new way. And this is all my opinion. So first, it's addressed to Mr. Ramsey. And initially, it was Mr. and Mrs. and the author changed it to Mr. Ramsey. So I conclude, taking this at face value, that this man knew John Ramsey. So he might have known him from a neighbor talking, or when he got to the house, he saw something that led to him knowing that John was the resident of this house. We do respect your business. That's why I put that range. So maybe this is somebody that does work for Access, delivers packages, or knows John Ramsey from the one extreme. And then on the other extreme, maybe it's just a neighbor that heard from another neighbor that John has a business. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. This indicates some education. Now, some people argue, no, it doesn't. But I think it does, because you're withdrawing from your account, and to bring an attaché to the bank, an adequate size attaché, that's not high school vocabulary. Next, the instruction between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow, and the delivery will be exhausting. The intruder wanted that time frame of them waiting for the next day and giving him more time to get away. Next, the language of the ransom note indicates that the killer is just being boastful and cruel and is toying with Mr. Ramsey. He's enjoying this. Finally, the biggest clue of the ransom note is use that good Southern common sense of yours. This shows that the writer did not know John very well, because he was basically from Michigan, and he lived in Atlanta, but he didn't have a Southern accent. I think most people, if they talked with him, would not consider him a Southerner. So this person knew that John was from Atlanta, and that is why they assumed that he was a Southerner. So it narrows the range greatly of who this person is. In conclusion, this scenario, the intruder was in the Ramsey house for a long time because he enjoys the thrill of doing this. Will he get caught? Won't he get caught? And I think the people that believe John or Patsy was responsible, they're going to find many flaws in this scenario.
To the viewers out there that have subscribed to my channel, thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, this ends this episode of Unsolved. And in the next episode on the JonBenet case, I'm going to look at those gatherings that happened shortly before Christmas Day and see if we can find anyone that matches this description, or maybe somebody else.